The grand halls of the Zetharian Imperial Palace gleamed with crystalline surfaces that caught and reflected light in thousands of dancing patterns. Empress Shinvara stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of her private office, her scaled hands clasped behind her back as she gazed out at the sprawling capital city below. Her silver and blue scales, which normally shimmered with health and vitality, seemed dull today. The weight of leadership sat heavy on her shoulders, but it was nothing compared to the weight of failure she felt as a mother. Behind her, the palace's head of household staff stood in uncomfortable silence. Administrator Trelvon held a data pad in his clawed hands, and the numbers on it told a story that became more embarrassing with each passing week. 47 caregivers. 47 highly trained, thoroughly vetted, professionally recommended individuals from across the galaxy. All of them had quit, been driven away, or simply refused to return after their first day with the Empress's 3 hatchlings. Your Majesty, Trelvon began carefully, his voice hesitant. I have received 3 more resignations this morning. The Velen empath lasted only 4 hours. She said the emotional manipulation was beyond anything she had encountered in her 30 years of childcare experience. Shinvara closed her eyes. The Velens were known throughout the galaxy for their patience and their ability to connect with young minds. If even they could not handle Rin, Mira and Kale, what hope was left? What reason did she give? The Empress asked, though she already knew the answer would be some variation of what all the others had said. Trelvon consulted his data pad. She reported that the eldest, Rin, created elaborate distractions while Mira identified and exploited her specific psychological vulnerabilities. The youngest, Kale, would then trigger carefully planned emotional responses that made her question her own professional abilities. She said they worked as a perfect team, almost military in their coordination. The Empress turned from the window, her expression weary. They are my children, Trelvon. Not enemy soldiers. Why can no one in this entire galaxy figure out how to care for 3 young hatchlings? But even as she said it, Shinvara knew the answer. Her children were not simply being difficult. They were protecting themselves the only way they knew how. 6 months ago, their father had died in a shuttle accident during a diplomatic mission. 6 months ago, her mate and their protector had been taken from them suddenly and without warning. The hatchlings had learned that attachment meant pain, that trust led to loss. Every new caregiver represented another stranger who might disappear, another adult who might leave them behind. She understood their fear. She shared it. But understanding did not solve the problem. The Empire needed her attention. Diplomatic crises did not pause for grief. Trade negotiations continued regardless of personal tragedy. She needed help and her children needed stability, but the 2 needs seemed impossible to reconcile. There is the reception tonight, Trelvon reminded her gently. The human delegation is arriving for Ambassador Grant's official presentation of credentials. Shinvara nodded absently. Humans. The newest species to join the Galactic Council, barely 2 generations into space travel. They were considered curious oddities by most of the elder races, weak in body, short in lifespan, possessing no natural defenses or remarkable abilities. Yet they had achieved faster-than-light travel through sheer determination and had impressed enough council members to earn a provisional seat at the galactic table. Have the hatchlings been prepared? She asked. Trelvon's scales shifted color slightly, a sign of discomfort. They are aware of the event, Your Majesty. Whether they will cooperate is another matter entirely. The reception hall that evening was filled with delegates from a dozen different worlds. The Zetharian Empire maintained careful diplomatic relationships with species ranging from the towering Kryn warriors to the delicate, floating Mirati scholars. Ambassador Peter Grant stood near the center of the room, a tall human male with kind eyes and graying hair at his temples. Beside him stood his wife, Anna, a woman with warm brown eyes and an easy smile. And in her arms, looking around at everything with wide-eyed wonder, was their daughter. Lily Grant was 18 months old, barely more than a baby by human standards. She wore a simple blue dress, and her soft brown hair was pulled back with a small clip. Her chubby hands reached out occasionally to touch the shimmering decorations, and she made small sounds of delight at the colorful displays of bioluminescence from various alien attendees. Empress Shinvara made her formal entrance with her 3 hatchlings walking behind her in traditional procession. Or at least that was how it was supposed to work. Rin, at 7 years old, walked with rigid correctness, his green and gold scales arranged in patterns of formal respect. But his eyes were sharp and watchful, scanning for any sign of threat or expectation. Mira, 5 years old, walked with deliberate slowness, making the procession take longer than protocol demanded, a small act of defiance that fell just short of actual disrespect. Kale, the youngest at 4, kept his head down and his scales pulled tight against his body, making himself as small as possible. The formal greetings began. Ambassador Grant bowed in the human style, which looked slightly awkward compared to the graceful gestures of more experienced species, but his sincerity was obvious. Anna smiled and offered her own greeting in carefully practiced Zetharian, which made several of the court officials nod with approval. And then Lily, still in her mother's arms, caught sight of the 3 hatchlings. The baby's eyes went wide. She had never seen Zetharians before, had never seen any alien species up close. Her small mouth formed a perfect circle of surprise as she stared at Rin's gleaming scales, at Myra's elegant crest, at Kale's softly glowing eye ridges. The hatchlings, who had been barely tolerating the formal ceremony, suddenly went completely still. They stared back at the tiny human infant with equal surprise. In 6 months of caregivers, therapists, and well-meaning adults, not one of them had ever brought a child of their own. Every adult who entered their lives came alone, came as an authority figure, came with expectations and rules and plans to fix them. But this human woman held a baby. A creature even smaller and more helpless than Kale. A being that looked at them not with judgment or professional assessment, but with pure, uncomplicated curiosity. Lily squirmed in her mother's arms, reaching out one chubby hand toward the hatchlings. She made a sound, not words, just a babbling coo of interest. Anna gently redirected her daughter's attention, whispering something soft in the human's ear, but Lily kept looking back at the 3 young Zetharians. For the first time in months, Rin forgot to maintain his defensive posture. Myra's calculations of how to disrupt the ceremony vanished from her mind. Kale lifted his head, his scales relaxing slightly as he watched the strange little creature with the reaching hands and the fearless eyes. The formal presentations continued. Diplomatic pleasantries were exchanged. Treaties were mentioned and trade agreements referenced. But throughout it all, Empress Shinvara noticed something remarkable. Her children were not causing problems. They were not plotting mischief or coordinating disruptions. They were simply watching the human baby, and the human baby was watching them back. When the reception finally ended and the various delegates began to depart, Shinvara found herself standing near Anna Grant. The human woman was gently bouncing Lily, who had grown tired and fussy as the evening wore on. "Your daughter is beautiful," Shinvara said, and meant it. There was something appealing about the small human, something genuine and unguarded. Anna smiled. "Thank you, Your Majesty. She's been fascinated by everything since we arrived. I think she's never seen so many new and wonderful things." Wonderful. The word echoed in Shinvara's mind. The human baby looked at alien beings with scales and claws and glowing eyes, and she saw something wonderful. Not frightening. Not strange. Just wonderful. An idea began to form in the Empress's mind. A ridiculous idea. An impossible idea. But then again, 47 failed caregivers had already proven that conventional solutions were not working. Perhaps what her children needed was not another expert or another authority figure. Perhaps what they needed was something no one had thought to offer them before. As the Grant family departed, Lily looked back over her mother's shoulder one last time. Her eyes found the 3 hatchlings and she waved one small hand in goodbye. And for the first time in 6 months, all 3 of Shinvara's children waved back. The morning sun filtered through the palace windows as Empress Shinvara sat across from Ambassador Peter Grant and his wife Anna in one of the smaller, more private meeting rooms. This was not an official diplomatic session. No recording devices were active, no staff members waited nearby to take notes. This was a conversation between parents, though one of them happened to rule half a star sector. "I realize this is highly unusual," Shinvara began, choosing her words carefully. "But I find myself in a situation where traditional approaches have completely failed. My children need care while I attend to my duties, and every professional I have hired has been unable to connect with them." Anna shifted Lily on her lap. The baby was chewing on a soft toy, occasionally looking around the room with mild interest. "Your Majesty, I'm not sure I understand what you're proposing," Anna said gently. Shinvara took a breath. "At the reception last night I noticed something. My hatchlings showed interest in your daughter. Real interest, not the calculated observation they use when planning their next act of rebellion. I wonder if perhaps a human approach to childcare might offer something different." Peter frowned slightly. "With respect, Your Majesty, my wife isn't a professional caregiver. She's a parent, yes, but Zetharian children might need specialized knowledge that we simply don't have." 47 specialists have failed, Ambassador, Shinvara replied quietly. Perhaps what my children need is not more expertise but something more basic. Something more honest. She looked at Anna directly. Would you be willing to try? To bring Lily to the Imperial Nursery and simply be there with my hatchlings? Not as their teacher or their therapist or their keeper. Just as another parent sharing the same space. Anna was quiet for a long moment, looking down at Lily. The baby had dropped her toy and was now reaching for her mother's hair, tangling small fingers in the brown strands. I would need to understand more about their needs, Anna said finally. What they eat, what frightens them, what comforts them. And I would need your permission to treat them as I would any children, with kindness but also with honesty. You have it, Shinvara said immediately. All of it. Whatever you need. 2 days later, Anna walked through the palace corridors with Lily balanced on her hip and a bag of supplies slung over her shoulder. A nervous attendant led them to the Imperial Nursery, a vast space filled with climbing structures, learning stations and play areas designed for young Zetharians. It was beautiful and elaborate, and Anna noticed immediately, almost entirely unused. The toys sat in perfect arrangement. The learning stations were clean and dust-free. Nothing had been touched or played with or lived in. In the center of the room, 3 hatchlings sat in a tight cluster, watching the door with suspicious eyes. Rin stood slightly in front of his younger siblings, his posture protective. Myra's scales had shifted to darker colors, a sign of wariness. Kale pressed close to his brother's side, trying to look brave but clearly nervous. Hello, Anna said simply, keeping her voice warm but not overly cheerful. She had learned long ago that children could sense fake enthusiasm from a mile away. I'm Anna and this is Lily. Your mother invited us to spend some time here. Is that all right with you? The hatchlings said nothing. They just stared, their eyes moving from Anna to the baby and back again. Anna walked further into the room and set her bag down near a low table. She settled Lily on a soft mat and began unpacking. Some of Lily's toys, a few books, some snacks in a small container. She moved calmly and without hurry, not asking permission, not explaining herself, just making space as if she belonged there. Lily, free to move, immediately crawled toward a scattered pile of colorful blocks. She grabbed one with both hands and brought it to her mouth, testing it with her gums. She puts everything in her mouth, Anna said conversationally, still unpacking. It's how human babies learn about the world. Touch, taste, texture. We don't have the sensory abilities that other species have, so we make do with what we've got. The hatchlings exchanged glances. This was not how any of their previous caregivers had arrived. The others had come with rules and schedules and plans. The Kryn militarist had immediately tried to establish dominance. The Velen empath had attempted to flood them with soothing emotions. The Corvin educator had started asking them questions about their developmental stages. This human woman was simply sitting on the floor, organizing baby supplies. Rin decided to test her. She's very small, he said, his voice carrying an edge of challenge. Fragile. This nursery has many things that could hurt a creature that weak. Anna looked up and nodded. You're right. That's why I'll need to watch her carefully. Human babies are pretty helpless compared to other species. They can't even walk yet at her age. She smiled slightly. But she's tougher than she looks. She falls down a lot and gets right back up. Mira tilted her head, studying Anna with sharp eyes. Why did you bring her here? Don't humans know this is a testing ground? We make caregivers quit. All of them. Every single one. I'm not really a caregiver, Anna replied, pulling out a soft blanket and spreading it on the floor. I'm just a parent spending time with my daughter. Your mother asked if we could share the space and I thought it might be nice. Lily enjoys being around other children, even if they're different species. Kale spoke for the first time, his voice quiet. We're not children. We're problems. Anna stopped what she was doing and looked directly at the youngest hatchling. Her expression was gentle but serious. Kale, whoever told you that was wrong. You're a child who has been through something very difficult. That's not the same thing as being a problem. The 3 hatchlings went very still. No one had acknowledged their father's death directly. Everyone danced around it with careful words and professional distance. But this human woman had just said it plainly, as if it were a simple truth that didn't need to be hidden. Before any of them could respond, Lily made a sound of triumph. She had managed to stack 2 blocks on top of each other, and she was clearly proud of this achievement. She looked at her mother and babbled excitedly, then looked at the 3 hatchlings as if inviting them to celebrate with her. Very good. Anna praised. You're getting so much better at that. The blocks immediately fell over. Lily's face scrunched up, but instead of crying she just grabbed them again and tried once more. Rin watched this with fascination. She doesn't get upset when she fails? Oh, she gets frustrated sometimes, Anna said. But humans are persistent. We're not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest species in the galaxy. What we're good at is trying again. And again. And again until we figure it out. Mira made a decision. If this human and her baby were going to invade their space, they would test them properly. She nodded to her brothers, and the 3 hatchlings spread out, forming a triangle around Lily. Then, in perfect synchronization, they activated their natural defenses. Rin's scales began to glow with bright, pulsing light, a display meant to startle and intimidate. Myra's crest extended fully, sharp edges gleaming, and she made a low hissing sound that was designed to trigger fear responses in most species. Kale, despite his young age, managed to make his claws extend with an audible click, the sharp points catching the light. It was a coordinated display of threat. It was what had sent their last caregiver screaming from the room. Lily, who had been focused on her blocks, looked up at the sudden light and sound. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth opened. And then she laughed. It was a pure, delighted giggle of joy. She dropped her blocks and clapped her hands together, bouncing in place with excitement. To her, this was not a threat display. This was the most amazing thing she had ever seen. The pretty lights. The interesting sounds. The shiny things. Again? Lily demanded in her limited vocabulary, reaching toward Rin's glowing scales. Pretty? Again. The 3 hatchlings froze in complete confusion. This was not the response they had expected. The baby wasn't afraid. She wasn't crying or running or calling for her mother. She thought it was wonderful. Anna, still sitting calmly on the floor, smiled. She really likes that. The light show especially. Human babies are attracted to bright colors and movement. Mira slowly retracted her crest, staring at Lily as if the baby were the alien in the room. She's not scared of us? Why would she be scared? Anna asked simply. You're just showing her what you can do. To her, that's interesting, not frightening. She doesn't know she's supposed to be afraid. Nobody's taught her that yet. Kale retracted his claws, moving closer to Lily with cautious curiosity. She thinks we're amazing? I think she does, Anna confirmed. She's never met anyone like you before. From her perspective, you're the most fascinating creatures in the universe. Lily reached out again, this time toward Kale since he was closest. Her small hand touched his scales gently, feeling the texture. Nice, she said, one of her few words. Nice. Kale stood absolutely still, afraid to move. The tiny human was touching him with complete trust, with no fear at all, with nothing but gentle curiosity. Something inside his chest felt strange and warm. Rin and Mira moved closer too, drawn by something they couldn't quite name. This baby didn't see them as problems to fix or challenges to overcome or damaged goods to repair. She just saw them. And she liked what she saw. Anna watched the 4 children carefully, ready to intervene if needed, but something told her intervention wouldn't be necessary. For the first time since entering the palace, her shoulders relaxed slightly. Would you like to help me with something? Anna asked the hatchlings. Lily needs to practice her walking. She's not very good at it yet. She falls down a lot. But she does better when she has someone to hold on to. Would you be willing to help her? The 3 hatchlings looked at each other, then at the tiny human baby who was smiling at them with absolute trust and zero judgment. Yes, Rin said quietly. We can help. 3 weeks had passed since Anna and Lily first entered the Imperial Nursery, and the transformation was so complete that even the palace staff whispered about it in amazed tones. The nursery that had once been pristine and untouched now showed clear signs of life. Toys were scattered across the floor in natural patterns of play. The climbing structures had tiny handprints on them. The learning stations had been rearranged to accommodate a human baby who could barely walk. Every morning, Anna would arrive with Lily, and every morning, 3 young Zetharians would be waiting by the door. Not hiding in corners or plotting mischief, but actually waiting with something that looked almost like excitement. On this particular morning, Lily toddled through the door on unsteady legs, holding her mother's hand for balance. The moment she saw the hatchlings, her face lit up with pure joy. Rin? Mira? Kale? She called out, her pronunciation still clumsy but getting better every day. She let go of her mother's hand and tried to run toward them, which resulted in her usual wobbling rush that was half walk, half controlled fall. Kale immediately moved forward, positioning himself in case she stumbled. Over the past weeks, he had become her shadow, always within reach when she needed steadying. Careful, Lily, he said gently. Small steps. Lily crashed into him anyway, wrapping her small arms around his leg in an enthusiastic hug. Kale's scales flushed with a warm golden color, a sign of happiness that he had not displayed in months. Anna settled into her usual spot, a comfortable chair in the corner where she could watch while working on her data pad. She had learned that the children did better when she was present but not hovering. They needed to know an adult was there, but they also needed space to simply be children together. Mira approached Lily with something hidden behind her back. "Lily, look what I found in the storage room," she said, bringing forward a soft ball made of some kind of elastic material. "It bounces really high. Wanna try?" Lily's eyes went wide with interest. "Yes. Yes." She clapped her hands together, her whole body wiggling with excitement. But instead of keeping the ball for herself, Mira handed it directly to Lily. This was something that continued to amaze Anna. The hatchlings shared everything with Lily without being asked. Toys, snacks, attention, discoveries. Whatever they had, Lily had access to automatically. Rin had explained it to Anna one day in his serious, thoughtful way. "She shares with us first," he had said. "Every time. Even when she only has one cookie, she tries to break it into pieces for all of us. So we share with her. It's only fair." The concept of fairness was important to Rin. He was the oldest, the protector, the one who had tried to hold his siblings together through their grief. He operated on rules and logic because emotions felt too dangerous. But Lily's simple, uncomplicated generosity had given him a rule he could understand. If someone shares with you, you share back. Lily threw the ball with all her might, which meant it traveled about 3 feet before bouncing. She squealed with delight and chased after it on unsteady legs. The hatchlings followed, not to take the ball, but to make sure she did not fall on the hard floor. As the morning progressed, Anna watched the children play with half her attention while reviewing some diplomatic documents on her data pad. She had learned to recognize the different sounds of the nursery. Happy playing sounded like laughter and running feet and excited babbling. Tired playing sounded quieter, with longer pauses. Frustrated playing had a particular whiny quality that meant someone needed a snack or a break. Right now, everything sounded happy. But then Rin had an idea. Or rather, a test. Despite the weeks of progress, part of him still could not quite believe that this situation was real. That Lily's affection was genuine. That she would not eventually reject them like everyone else had. He waited until Lily set down her favorite stuffed animal, a worn blue rabbit that she carried everywhere. The moment she toddled off to explore a toy kitchen set with Mira, Rin quietly picked up the rabbit and hid it behind a storage container. Then he waited to see what would happen. It took Lily about 5 minutes to notice. She had been pretending to cook something in the toy kitchen, babbling to Mira about soup and yummy, but when she turned to include her rabbit in the game, it was gone. Her small face went through several expressions in quick succession. Confusion, searching, growing distress. She looked around the immediate area, checking all the spots where she might have set it down. But the rabbit was not there. "Rabbit?" she called out, her voice getting smaller. "Where rabbit?" Kale, who had not seen Rin hide the toy, immediately began helping her search. "Don't worry, Lily. We'll find it. It must be here somewhere." But as the search continued and the rabbit did not appear, Lily's lower lip began to tremble. Her eyes filled with tears. She did not throw a tantrum or scream or demand someone fix it. She just stood in the middle of the nursery with her small hands opening and closing helplessly, and one tear rolled down her cheek. "Rabbit gone," she whispered, and the sadness in her voice was so pure and simple that it hit like a physical blow. Rin, watching from across the room, felt something terrible twist in his chest. He had expected crying. He had expected anger, maybe, or demands. He had not expected this quiet, heartbroken acceptance. This assumption that the thing she loved was simply gone now, and there was nothing she could do about it. It reminded him too much of how he had felt when his father died. That same helpless sadness. That same confusion about where something precious had gone. The guilt crashed over him like a wave. What was he doing? Why was he testing her? Lily had never been anything but kind to them. She had never hidden their things or tricked them or hurt them on purpose. She was a baby. A good, sweet, trusting baby who had done nothing to deserve this. Rin moved before he could think about it further. He retrieved the blue rabbit from its hiding place and walked quickly to Lily, dropping to his knees in front of her. "Here," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Here it is. I'm sorry. I hid it and that was wrong. I'm really sorry." Lily looked at the rabbit. Then she looked at Rin. For a moment, he was terrified that she would finally see him clearly, would understand that he was mean and suspicious and not worthy of her trust. But then Lily's face transformed. The sadness vanished like it had never existed. She grabbed the rabbit and hugged it tight, then immediately threw her arms around Rin's neck, rabbit and all, squeezing him with all the strength in her small body. "Thank you," she said happily, already forgiving, already moving past it. "Found it?" Rin found it. There was no accusation. No anger about the hiding. No wariness about whether he might do it again. She was just happy to have her rabbit back and grateful that Rin had returned it. Rin held very still, feeling her warm weight against him, her complete trust. His own eyes began to sting. He carefully put his arms around her, being mindful of his claws, and held her gently. "I won't hide your things again," he promised quietly. "I won't test you anymore. You're good, Lily. You're so good." Mira and Kale had watched the whole exchange. They gathered closer now, creating a small circle around Lily and Rin. "She forgives everything," Kale said softly, wonder in his voice. "No matter what happens, she just forgives it." "That's because she doesn't hold on to bad feelings," Anna said from her chair. She had been watching carefully, ready to intervene if needed, but knowing somehow that it was not needed. Human babies live in the present moment. What happened 5 minutes ago might as well be yesterday. She's sad when her rabbit is gone and happy when it comes back. She doesn't carry resentment because she doesn't understand it yet. Mira moved closer to Lily, gently touching the baby's soft hair. "We could learn from that," she said quietly. "Holding on to everything bad just makes us hurt all the time." It was the most emotionally honest thing Mira had said since her father died. Anna felt tears prick her own eyes but kept her voice steady. "That's very wise, Mira." The rest of the day took on a different quality. The hatchlings had always been protective of Lily, but now there was something deeper to it. They were not just watching over her, they were actively caring for her in ways that went beyond simple supervision. When Lily tried to climb on something too high, Kale was there to help her find a safer route. When she got frustrated trying to fit shapes into a puzzle, Mira showed her how to turn them until they matched. When she got tired and cranky before lunch, Rin brought her a soft cushion and sat beside her, letting her lean against him while she sucked her thumb and calmed down. They taught her words in both languages. "Stars," Rin would say, pointing at a picture. "Stars," Lily would repeat. Then, "Shurtar," he would add in Zatharian. "Shurtar." Lily would try, the pronunciation terrible but earnest. They kept her safe with the intensity of trained guards. When she wandered too close to a sharp corner, someone was always there to redirect her. When she tried to put something inappropriate in her mouth, it was gently removed and replaced with a proper toy. They needed her. That was what Anna realized as she watched them. These 3 young Zetharians who had lost their father and were afraid to trust anyone, had found something in Lily that they desperately needed. She was not there to fix them or teach them or judge them. She was just there, needing them back. Lily needed Kale to help her walk without falling. She needed Mira to teach her new words. She needed Rin to keep her safe when things were scary. And in meeting those needs, the hatchlings found purpose again. They found a reason to engage with the world. They found someone who depended on them in a way that felt good instead of heavy. When Anna began packing up to leave that afternoon, Lily yawned hugely and rubbed her eyes with small fists. She was exhausted from a full day of play. "Say goodbye," Anna prompted gently. But instead of just waving, Lily went to each hatchling and hugged them. First Kale, then Mira, then Rin. "Love you," she said to each one, the words slightly mushed together but clear enough. "Love you." The 3 hatchlings stood very still, receiving these declarations like precious gifts. "We love you too, Lily," Rin said, and his siblings nodded in agreement. After Anna and Lily left, the 3 hatchlings stood together in the nursery that no longer felt empty or cold. Empress Shinvara, who had been watching through the security feed from her office, wiped tears from her own eyes and sent a message to Anna. "Thank you," it said simply. "You have given my children something I could not. You have given them hope." The afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows of the Imperial Nursery, creating patterns of light and shadow on the floor where Lily sat surrounded by colorful building blocks. She had been trying to build a tower for the past 20 minutes, and so far her record was 4 blocks high before everything collapsed. Mira watched with growing frustration on Lily's behalf. "Why does she keep trying?" she asked Anna, who sat nearby mending one of Lily's small dresses. "She fails every time. Any logical being would stop and try something else." Anna looked up from her sewing and smiled. "Humans aren't always logical, Mira. Especially human children. She wants to build a tall tower, so she'll keep trying until she figures it out." "But it makes no sense," Mira insisted. "She has no natural engineering skills. Her hands are clumsy. The blocks are too big for her grip. She should recognize her limitations and move to an activity better suited to her current abilities." As if to prove Myra's point, Lily's fifth attempt resulted in the blocks tumbling down once again. The baby made a small sound of disappointment, but then immediately began gathering the blocks to try again. Rin had been listening to this conversation while organizing some of Lily's toys into neat containers. He paused in his work and came to sit beside the baby, watching her carefully stack the first block, then the second, then the third. "She is not thinking about limitations," he said quietly. "She is only thinking about what she wants to achieve." "That's exactly right," Anna confirmed. "Human babies learn curiosity and desire before they learn fear or limitation. Lily wants to build a tower, so in her mind she can build a tower. The fact that she hasn't succeeded yet doesn't change what she wants." Kale, who had been playing with a puzzle on the other side of the room, abandoned it to join the group around Lily. "But doesn't failure hurt?" he asked softly. "Doesn't it make her feel bad about herself?" Anna set down her sewing and gave Kale her full attention. His question was not really about Lily, it was about himself. "Failure is just information," she said gently. "It tells you what didn't work so you can try something different. It only hurts when someone tells you that failing means you're not good enough. But nobody has told Lily that, so she doesn't believe it." Lily placed her fourth block, holding her breath with concentration. Her small tongue stuck out slightly between her lips, a sign of intense focus. The tower wobbled but held. She reached for the fifth block. All three hatchlings leaned forward, watching with fascination. They had stopped breathing as if any movement might disturb her success. Lily placed the fifth block. The tower swayed. For a moment it seemed like it would fall again. But then it settled, standing proud and tall, well, tall for a baby's tower at least. "I did it!" Lily shrieked with joy, clapping her hands together so enthusiastically that she knocked the tower over herself. But she did not care. She had succeeded, even if only for a moment, and that was enough. "I did it! I did it!" The hatchlings erupted in celebration with her, their scales brightening with reflected happiness. Kale picked her up and spun her around gently while Mira and Rin applauded. "You did it," Rin agreed, his voice warm with genuine pride. "You kept trying and you did it." Anna watched this scene with a full heart. The hatchlings were learning something important from Lily, something that all their expensive tutors and therapists had failed to teach them. They were learning that persistence mattered more than immediate success. That trying again was not a sign of weakness but of strength. Later that afternoon, after Lily had eaten her lunch and was settling down for a nap on a soft mat, the three hatchlings gathered around Anna with questions. This was becoming a regular occurrence. As they spent more time with Lily and her mother, they became more curious about human behavior and thinking. "Why doesn't Lily know fear?" Mira asked, settling into a comfortable position on the floor. "Every species teaches their young about danger. It's basic survival." Anna thought about how to explain this in a way they would understand. "Human babies are born incredibly helpless," she began. "More helpless than almost any other species in the galaxy. We can't walk, can't feed ourselves, can't communicate beyond crying. We're completely dependent on adults to keep us safe." "That sounds like a terrible design," Rin observed. Anna laughed softly. "Many species think so. But there's a reason for it. Because human babies are so helpless they have to trust completely. They have to believe that the adults around them will protect them. So they're born curious and trusting first. Fear comes later when they're old enough to understand what danger means." Kale was lying on his stomach near Lily's sleeping mat, watching her breathe in the soft rhythm of sleep. "So Lily trusts us because she doesn't know any better?" he asked, sounding almost sad about it. "No," Anna corrected gently. "Lily trusts you because trust is her natural state. She hasn't learned to be suspicious yet. She hasn't learned that some beings might hurt her. All she knows is that you three are kind to her, play with her, keep her safe. So she loves you." "Love," Mira repeated the word carefully. "Not attachment. Not pack bonding. Love." "Yes," Anna confirmed. "Humans feel love very easily, especially when we're young. It's one of our survival traits. We need others so desperately that we bond quickly and deeply." Rin was quiet for a long moment, his claws tracing patterns on the floor. "Our father used to say that strength was the most important thing," he finally said. "That Zetharians survived because we were strong and smart and powerful. But humans aren't any of those things and you survived anyway." "We survived through cooperation," Anna explained. "Through caring for each other. Through persistence. Early humans had no claws, no armor, no venom. We were slow and weak. But we worked together. We protected each other's children. We taught each other. We never gave up even when things seemed impossible." She gestured to Lily, still sleeping peacefully. That's why she keeps trying to build her tower. It's in her nature. Humans don't succeed because we're the best at any one thing. We succeed because we keep trying until we figure it out. Myra's scales shifted to a thoughtful purple color. Like how she learned to walk. She fell down hundreds of times, but she kept getting up. Exactly, Anna said. The conversation lapsed into comfortable silence. The hatchlings seemed to be processing what they had learned, turning it over in their minds the way they might examine a new toy or puzzle. Then Kale spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. Our father died 6 months ago. Anna went very still. In all their weeks together, the hatchlings had never directly mentioned their father's death to her. She knew about it, of course, everyone in the palace knew. But the children had kept that pain locked away, hidden behind walls of mischief and defiance. I'm so sorry, Kale, she said softly. That must have been very hard. Everyone wanted us to stop being sad, Mira added, not looking at Anna. The counselors said we needed to process our grief and move through the stages. The therapists wanted us to talk about our feelings. The teachers wanted us to focus on our studies to distract ourselves. But none of it helped, Rin finished. It just made us angry. They wanted to fix us like we were broken things. Anna chose her words carefully. Grief isn't something that gets fixed. It's something you carry. Sometimes it's heavy and sometimes it's lighter, but it's always there. That's okay. That's normal. Lily doesn't try to fix us, Kale observed. No, Anna agreed. Lily just loves you. She doesn't know you're supposed to be broken, so she treats you like you're whole. Rin's scales flickered through several colors, a sign of strong emotion. When I'm with her, I forget to be sad for a while. Not because the sadness goes away, but because there's happiness too. Both things exist at the same time. That's healing, Anna said gently. Not forgetting your father or stopping your sadness. Just making room for happiness again too. Mira moved closer to Lily's sleeping form, reaching out to gently adjust the blanket that had slipped off the baby's shoulder. She needs us, Mira said quietly. All those caregivers you drove away, they didn't need you. They were just doing a job. But Lily actually needs you to help her walk, to teach her words, to keep her safe. That's different. It makes me feel useful, Kale admitted. Like I have a purpose again. You do, Anna assured him. You're teaching her about your world. You're showing her friendship. You're helping her grow. Those are important purposes. Lily stirred in her sleep, making a small sound. Immediately, all 3 hatchlings were attentive, checking to make sure she was comfortable. When she settled again without waking, they relaxed. She's so small, Rin said, more to himself than to Anna. So helpless. But she's also brave in a way I don't think I could be. She tries things even when they're hard. She trusts even when she's been hurt. She loves without holding back. Those are human strengths, Anna said. Not physical strength or intellectual superiority. Just the strength to keep trying, keep trusting, keep loving. It doesn't seem like much compared to claws and scales and advanced technology. But it's carried humanity through thousands of years of challenges. Mira looked at Anna with new understanding in her eyes. You're teaching us through her. Through watching how she approaches the world. Anna smiled. I'm not teaching you anything. I'm just letting you spend time with a human baby. You're learning on your own by paying attention. As the afternoon wore on and Lily woke from her nap refreshed and cheerful, the hatchlings engaged with her in their usual way, playing, teaching, protecting. But there was something deeper now. A recognition that this tiny human was showing them a different way to be strong. A different way to face challenges. A different way to heal. When it was time to leave, Lily gave her usual hugs and declarations of love. But this time, when Rin hugged her back, he whispered something that Anna almost missed. Thank you for teaching us, he said to the baby who could barely understand his words. Thank you for showing us it's okay to try again. Lily just patted his scales and grinned. Love Rin, she said simply, and that was all that mattered. The crisis began on a Tuesday morning when Ambassador Peter Grant rushed into the Imperial Palace with urgent news. 3 border systems were in dispute, trade negotiations had collapsed, and the Kryn Confederacy was threatening to withdraw from the regional alliance. Empress Shinvara would need to handle delicate diplomatic discussions for the next 72 hours straight, hosting delegations from 5 different species, each with their own demands and grievances. The palace staff moved into emergency protocol. Every room was prepared for formal functions. Security was doubled. Translators were briefed. And in the Imperial Nursery, 3 young hatchlings felt their carefully rebuilt world beginning to shake. Anna arrived that morning to find Rin pacing near the windows, his scales shifting through agitated colors. Mira sat in a corner, her crest partially extended in a defensive posture. Kale had made himself as small as possible, hiding behind a climbing structure. "Good morning," Anna said gently, setting Lily down as usual. The baby immediately sensed something was wrong. Instead of her usual enthusiastic greeting, she moved slowly, looking at each of the hatchlings with concern. "Mother is busy," Rin said without looking at Anna. "Very busy. She said she might not see us for 3 days. Important meetings. Diplomatic emergencies." His voice was carefully controlled, but Anna heard the fear underneath. The last time their parent had been called away for important duties, their father had left and never come back. "I understand this feels scary," Anna said, moving closer but not touching. She had learned that the hatchlings needed space when they were upset. "But your mother will be in the palace the whole time. She's not traveling. She's just very busy." "That's what they said before." Myra's voice came from the corner, sharp and bitter. "Very busy. Very important. Must focus on duties." And then father was gone. Lily, not fully understanding but sensing the distress, walked over to Mira on unsteady legs. She climbed into the hatchling's lap without asking permission and wrapped her small arms around Myra's neck. "Sad?" Lily asked. Mira sat. Mira held very still, then slowly put her arms around the baby. "Yes," she whispered. "I'm sad." The day continued in difficult stops and starts. The hatchlings were regressing into old behaviors, not the calculated mischief they had used on caregivers, but genuine anxiety responses. Rin kept checking the door as if expecting bad news. Mira withdrew into herself, barely speaking. Kale clung to Lily like she was a life raft. Anna did her best to maintain routine. They had lunch at the usual time. They played quiet games. They read stories. But the shadow of worry hung over everything. That evening, Anna received an urgent message from Empress Shinvara. There would be a formal reception the following night, all major delegations in attendance. Protocol required the imperial hatchlings to make an appearance, to demonstrate the strength and stability of the royal family. Anna's heart sank. The hatchlings were barely holding themselves together. Asking them to perform formal duties in front of strangers seemed cruel. But she also understood the political necessity. The Empress was in an impossible position. She thought about the problem all night, and by morning she had an idea. It was unconventional. It might even be considered inappropriate. But it might also work. When she arrived at the palace the next day, she went directly to Empress Shinvara's office, carrying Lily on her hip. "Your Majesty," she said when she was admitted, "I have a request regarding tonight's reception." Shinvara looked exhausted. She had been in meetings for nearly 30 hours with very little sleep. "What is it, Anna?" "Let me bring Lily to the reception. Let her be there with the hatchlings." The Empress stared at her. "Anna, this is a formal diplomatic function. Children are not typically present, and certainly not human infants." "I know," Anna said calmly. "But your children are terrified. They're relapsing into the anxiety they felt after their father died. They need something familiar and safe to help them get through this. Lily is that for them." Shinvara was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Very well. But the infant must be well behaved. If she cries or causes disruption." "She won't," Anna promised. "I'll be there to manage her. But I think her presence will help your children more than any amount of coaching or preparation could." That evening, the grand reception hall filled with delegates from across the sector. The Kryn arrived in their military dress uniforms, tall and imposing. The delicate Mirati floated in crystalline environmental suits. The Velen empaths moved in graceful groups, their skin glowing softly. The Corvin intellectuals wore their traditional robes marked with academic achievements. And into this gathering of galactic power, 3 young Zetharian hatchlings walked in formal procession behind their mother. They wore traditional ceremonial attire, delicate chains of precious metals draped across their scales, formal crests shaped and colored according to ancient custom. Rin's hands were shaking. Myra's scales had gone pale with stress. Kel looked like he might be sick. But then they saw Anna standing near the edge of the room, and in her arms, wearing a simple but pretty dress, was Lily. The baby waved when she saw them, her face breaking into a huge smile. The effect was immediate. Rin's shoulders relaxed slightly. Myra's scales began returning to normal color. Kale managed to stand up straighter. The formal presentations began. Each delegation offered greetings and engaged in careful diplomatic conversation. The hatchlings stood beside their mother, responding when spoken to, performing their duties adequately if not enthusiastically. Lily watched everything with wide eyes, fascinated by the various species. She had never seen so many different kinds of beings in one place. When the narrates floated past, their crystalline suits catching the light, she gasped with delight and clapped her hands. An hour into the reception, a Kryn commander named Vectar approached the Empress. He was discussing trade routes and military cooperation when his eyes fell on Anna and Lily. "A human," he said, his voice carrying the dismissive tone his species often used. "I did not realize humans were considered significant enough for formal functions." Anna kept her expression neutral. She had dealt with prejudice before. But Empress Shinvara's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Ambassador Grant and his family are valued guests," she said coolly. Vectar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Valued? They are among the weakest species in the galaxy. No natural defenses, short lifespans, limited strength. I cannot imagine what value they bring to any serious discussion." Before Shinvara could respond, Rin stepped forward. His scales were beginning to glow with agitation, and his young voice rang out clearly across the conversation. "You're wrong," he said, staring up at the much taller Kryn commander. "Humans aren't weak. They're brave." Vectar looked down at the hatchling with something like amusement. "Brave? Child, that infant cannot even defend itself. It has no claws, no armor, no venom. What bravery is there in being helpless? Lily explores everything even though she's tiny." Rin's voice got louder, drawing attention from nearby delegates. "She tries things that are hard. She falls down and gets up again. She trusts people even though she's small enough that anyone could hurt her. That's braver than hiding behind armor and weapons." Mira stepped up beside her brother, her crest extending. "Humans don't need to be the strongest to be valuable. Lily teaches us things. She shows us how to be kind and patient. She never gives up even when things are difficult. Can you say the same?" Kale, the youngest, found his voice as well. "And she loves us without being afraid. She doesn't care that we're different or that we were mean to everyone before. She just loves us. That takes more courage than fighting." The reception hall had gone very quiet. Delegates from multiple species were watching this exchange with fascination. A group of young hatchlings defending a human baby against a decorated Kryn commander was not something anyone had expected to witness. Vectar's expression had shifted from amusement to something harder to read. "You are children," he said finally. "You do not understand the complexities of galactic power." "We understand that you judge strength by the wrong measures," Rin replied, his voice steady now. "And we understand that Lily is our friend. You can insult humans if you want, but don't do it in front of us." Empress Shinvara placed a gentle hand on Rin's shoulder, pride evident in her expression. "My son makes an excellent point, Commander Vectar. Perhaps the Kryn have been measuring strength incorrectly. Physical power is only one form of capability." A Velen empath drifted closer, her voice melodic. "The child speaks truth. We have observed human emotional intelligence with great interest. Their capacity for empathy and connection across species lines is remarkable." One of the Corvin scholars adjusted his spectacles. "Our recent studies suggest that human persistence and adaptability may be evolutionary advantages that rival physical strength in long-term survival scenarios." Anna stood quietly through all of this, holding Lily, who was starting to get sleepy, and rested her head on her mother's shoulder. She had not expected the hatchlings to defend humanity so fiercely, but she was deeply moved by it. Vectar looked around at the gathered delegates, clearly realizing that opinion was turning against his position. "I meant no offense," he said stiffly. "Merely observation." "Observation requires accurate data," Empress Shinvara replied coolly. "And your data on humans appears to be incomplete." The reception continued, but the tone had shifted. Delegates who had previously dismissed Ambassador Grant's presence began engaging him in genuine conversation. Questions about human culture and child-rearing practices became common. Several species expressed interest in establishing cultural exchange programs similar to what the Empress had arranged. Later that evening, after most of the delegates had departed, Shinvara found Anna preparing to leave with a sleeping Lily. "Thank you," the Empress said quietly, "for bringing her. For being here. My children were able to fulfill their duties tonight because they had something familiar to anchor them." "They did more than fulfill their duties," Anna replied. "They stood up for what they believe in. They defended someone they care about. That takes real courage." Shinvara looked back at her three hatchlings, who were being escorted to their quarters by palace staff. "They have learned courage from your daughter. And persistence. And loyalty. These are lessons I could not teach them, but she has. She's just being herself," Anna said with a smile. but I'm glad it helps. As Anna carried Lily out of the palace that night, she thought about what had happened. 3 grieving children had found healing through connection with a human baby. And in defending that baby, they had challenged galactic prejudices and started conversations that might change how humans were perceived across multiple worlds. All because a tiny girl did not know she was supposed to be weak, and 3 young hatchlings had learned that strength comes in many forms. 6 months had transformed the Imperial Palace in ways that no one could have predicted. The changes were small but significant. Laughter in the hallways, children's artwork displayed in the private quarters, toys scattered in corners where before everything had been pristine and formal. The nursery that had once been a battleground was now genuinely alive with the sounds of happy children. Lily was 2 years old now, speaking in full sentences that mixed human and Zetharian words without distinction. She would ask for juice, and then say please in Zetharian, or point at the sky and name the colors in both languages interchangeably. To her there was no difference. Words were just tools to communicate with the people she loved. The hatchlings had grown too, though not in size. Rin, now 8, had regained the confidence and leadership qualities that had been buried under his grief. He excelled in his studies and had even begun helping younger students in the palace school. Mira, at 6, had channeled her clever mind into creative pursuits, building elaborate structures, inventing games, solving puzzles that challenged children twice her age. Kale, now 5, had blossomed from the frightened child he had been into a gentle soul who noticed when others were hurting and always knew the right thing to say. Their teachers reported the changes with amazement. Their therapists noted improved emotional regulation and healthy social development. Their mother watched them with tears of gratitude, seeing her children truly happy for the first time since their father's death. And through it all, Lily was simply Lily, tumbling through life with fearless curiosity, generous affection, and stubborn determination. Anna sat in the nursery on a bright morning, watching Lily teach the hatchlings a human game involving hand clapping and rhyming. The baby had learned it from a video message from Earth, and now she was determined that Rin, Mira, and Kale should know it too. Pat a cake, Lily chanted, clapping her hands together and then against Kale's scaled palms. Baker's man. Kale tried to follow along, his claws clicking softly against Lily's small hands. He got the rhythm wrong and they both dissolved into giggles. Again? Lily demanded. We do again. Mira watched with amusement. Lily, we have practiced this 20 times. Perhaps we should try a different game. No. Lily insisted with the absolute certainty that only a 2-year-old could possess. We do until Kale gets it right. She is incredibly stubborn, Rin observed, but his tone was affectionate. Human trait, Anna said with a smile. Persistence, remember? The door to the nursery opened and Empress Shinvara entered. The children immediately brightened. These days the Empress made time to visit the nursery every single day, no matter how busy her schedule. It was a promise she had made to herself and to her children, and she kept it faithfully. Mother. Mira called out. Come see what Lily is teaching us. Shinvara settled gracefully onto a cushion, watching as Lily demonstrated the clapping game with intense focus. When Kale finally managed to get through the entire rhyme without missing a beat, everyone cheered like he had just won a major competition. Well done, Kale, the Empress said warmly. Then she looked at Anna. I have something I wish to discuss with you. And with the children. The tone was serious enough that everyone paid attention. Lily climbed into her mother's lap, sensing that something important was happening. In 2 weeks, it will be Lily's 2nd birthday, Shinvara began. And I have been thinking about how much she has become a part of this family. How much she has changed all of our lives. Rin, Mira, and Kale exchanged glances, some silent communication passing between them. We have been thinking about that too, Rin said carefully. And we would like to ask permission for something. Something important. Shinvara inclined her head. Speak freely. Rin looked at his siblings, drawing strength from their encouraging nods. We want to perform the Shirkala ceremony. We want to name Lily as our heart sister. Anna's breath caught. She had learned about the Shirkala ceremony during her studies of Zetharian culture. It was an ancient ritual rarely performed, that bound individuals together as family not by blood but by choice. It was considered one of the most sacred bonds in Zetharian society. This is not a small thing you ask, Shinvara said quietly. The Shirkala creates obligations that last a lifetime. Lily would be considered your true sister in every legal and cultural sense. You would be responsible for her well-being and she for yours for as long as you all live. We know, Mira said firmly. We have researched it thoroughly. We understand what it means. She is already our sister in our hearts, Kale added softly. We want to make it official. We want everyone to know that she belongs to us and we belong to her. Shinvara looked at Anna. This would require your permission as well. And Peter's, of course. The ceremony would grant my children certain rights and responsibilities regarding Lily's care and future. Anna felt tears prick her eyes. I think, she said, her voice thick with emotion, that Peter and I would be honored. But we should ask Lily too, even if she's young. She should have a choice. They all looked at the little girl sitting in her mother's lap. Lily had been listening with the serious expression she wore when trying to understand important grown-up conversations. Lily, Rin said, kneeling down to be at her eye level. Do you want to be our real sister? Forever and always. Lily's face split into the brightest smile. I your sister now, she declared. I love Rin and Mira and Kale. We family. Is that a yes? Mira asked, unable to hide her own smile. Yes. Lily shouted, throwing her arms in the air. Yes, yes, yes. The next 2 weeks were a flurry of preparation. The Shirkala ceremony required specific rituals, certain traditional elements, careful planning. Anna and Peter worked closely with the palace cultural advisors to understand everything involved. They wanted to honor the significance of what was happening while also making it accessible and meaningful for Lily. The ceremony was planned for the evening of Lily's birthday, in the palace gardens under the light of Zetharia's 3 moons. It would be a private affair, just the immediate family, a few close friends, and the ceremonial elder who would officiate. On the evening itself, the gardens were decorated with floating lights and flowers from both Earth and Zetharia. Tables held foods from both cultures. Human cake alongside Zetharian sweet crystals, Earth fruits next to exotic alien delicacies. Lily wore a special dress that Anna had made, combining human and Zetharian design elements. The hatchlings wore their ceremonial attire, their scales polished and gleaming, traditional markings painted carefully on their crests. The ceremonial elder, an ancient Zetharian named HFY, stood in the center of a circle marked with traditional symbols. The 3 hatchlings entered the circle first, standing in a triangle formation. Then Lily, holding her mother's hand, walked into the center. Anna released her daughter's hand and stepped back, joining Peter at the edge of the circle. This part Lily had to do alone. HFY began speaking in ancient Zetharian, words that had been used in this ceremony for thousands of years. Anna could only understand pieces of it, something about bonds chosen freely, about family created by love rather than blood, about responsibilities that transcended time and distance. Each of the hatchlings stepped forward in turn. Rin first, placing a small braided cord around Lily's wrist. I promise to protect you, he said clearly. To keep you safe, to stand beside you, to never let you face the world alone. Mira next, offering a small crystal that glowed softly. I promise to teach you, she said. To share my knowledge, to help you grow, to challenge you to be your best self. Kale last, presenting a smooth stone with markings carved into it. I promise to comfort you, he whispered. To be there when you are sad, to celebrate when you are happy, to always remind you that you are loved. Then Lily, coached carefully over the past days, spoke her own promises. Her pronunciation of the Zetharian words was imperfect, but her sincerity was absolute. I promise to love you, to be your sister, to never leave you alone. HFY raised his hands, and the 3 hatchlings and the small human girl joined their hands together in the center of the circle. The elder spoke words of binding, of family created and recognized, of bonds that the universe itself would honor. When it was done, when the ceremony was complete, the children remained standing together for a long moment. Then Kale, unable to contain himself, pulled Lily into a fierce hug. Rin and Mira joined immediately, creating a tangle of scales and skin, of alien and human, of a family that defied every traditional definition. Heart sister, Rin said, using the Zetharian term with pride. Now and always. Forever family, Lily agreed, her small voice muffled against Kale's shoulder. The celebration that followed was joyful and chaotic in the best possible way. Lily delighted in her birthday cake, getting frosting all over herself and anyone who came near. The hatchlings demonstrated the new protective formations they had been practicing, much to the amusement of the adults. Games were played, gifts were opened, songs were sung in multiple languages. As the evening grew late, Lily's energy finally began to flag. Anna found her daughter curled up on a cushion in the garden, surrounded by her 3 hatchling siblings. Rin had positioned himself as a windbreak, Mira had draped a blanket over all of them, and Kale had his tail wrapped protectively around Lily's small form. They were all asleep, peaceful and safe, a portrait of perfect trust. Empress Shinvara stood beside Anna, watching the children sleep. When my mate died, she said quietly, I thought my family was broken. I thought we would never be whole again. And now? Anna asked gently. Now I understand that family is not about being whole in the way we were before. It is about growing in new directions, creating new bonds, loving in new ways. She turned to Anna with tears shining in her eyes. I searched the entire galaxy for someone to control my children, to fix them, to make them behave. But humans sent us someone small enough to walk into their hearts. And in doing so, she healed all of us. Peter joined them, putting an arm around his wife's shoulders. She's changed us too, he said. Watching her connect with your children, seeing her loved so completely, it has taught us new things about what it means to be human. About what we have to offer the galaxy. Ambassador Grant looked at the sleeping children and smiled. I came here to negotiate treaties and establish diplomatic relations. I never imagined we would build a family instead. Perhaps, Shinvara said thoughtfully, that is what true diplomacy looks like. Not treaties and trade agreements, but bonds between individuals that grow into bridges between worlds. Anna knelt down, gently touching Lily's soft hair. The baby stirred slightly, then settled deeper into the protective circle of her siblings. She was completely safe, completely loved, completely home. She doesn't know about species differences or diplomatic protocols, Anna whispered. She just knows love. And somehow that was enough to change everything. As the 3 moons rose higher in the sky, casting silver light over the sleeping children, the adults stood watch. A human baby and 3 Zetharian hatchlings, bound together by choice and ceremony, proving that family was not defined by blood or species or biology. It was defined by love. By choice. By the simple but profound decision to care for someone else as much as you cared for yourself. And in that garden, under alien stars, a new kind of family slept in peace, proving that sometimes the smallest hearts can build the strongest bridges.